faster this time, I think. That's a good sign. So I'm broadcasting again. Something cut us off. We don't know if it was, you know, too much traffic on the internet at the moment. I don't know what kind of screens, but I'm going to try to advertise it, the stream again, and see if it works. Okay, we got two individuals watching. Um, so I'm just advertising to the folks that come to the stream from Facebook and Twitter X. Okay, it's not a bad picture. Remember those days in Texas where we had a terrible picture? Wasn't that true? Yeah.
We've had terrible picturing quite in Savannah too, driving in the car, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I want that to be yellow. Let's see.
Things are a little faster than they were before. So that's a good thing. In the internet world, our connection with everybody,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty amazing actually. But as is life on this planet,
I don't get all philosophical.
right?
or,
All
or,
philosophical.
or do.
Philosophical, is it?
There, sounds like something Tiendo would say.
Yeah, maybe.
Silly
Maybe there
sophical.
is. I kind of agree with that. But we don't know it, of course, and so I would never say that it came from them.
No, not unless you knew for sure.
Yes,
Which
that's
in some
the point.
cases you do know stuff that
Right,
they said for
we
you.
do. Well, the silly words that they've used, right?
Armadillo.
Armadillo for Amarillo,
And
Texas.
that one just jumped in my head.
Needless markups for Neiman Marcus.
What did he call L.A.?
Uh,
Los Angeles? Lost Angles? Lost Wages was Las Vegas.
yeah, Lost Wages was Las
That's
Vegas.
what I was thinking out of.
Okay, so we are still ticking away, I guess. And I didn't break out the chat. There's nobody there. I guess Finn shouldn't come back. Unless live chat's not working.
Let me.
8 individuals are watching now.
That sounds like it's working. I
Okay,
got
so
the. Why? Oh.
So I'm just, if, for anybody that's here for the first time, I'm awkward as hell.
No,
It takes me a long time to set up my screen, advertise it. I don't have that automated. You get nothing polished with me. I shouldn't say that. You know, I don't know what the degree of polishing would be. Right? Okay, so looks like I just need to put something on the screen. I'll start over.
Start over. JP says hi.
Oh, cool. JP. It's been a while. I know who that is. It's been a long while. We have a common friend that you know. I remember JP was doing, if it's the same JP, was doing the same, uh, well, I think a large amount of study of Tiendo's information. So if you're that person, but if you're not, that doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just saying.
If you're not, then get out of here. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right, right.
Total joke. Big, fat, huge joke. Bad joke.
Yeah.
A bad joke.
Silly, silly. So my notes here for the serious notes, which silly is good, but has its place, right?
That's right.
And this tape 260 that was recorded on July 16th, 1987, which says, that Northcraft only, which meant that they were the only ones present for the meeting. And that would have meant that the others would listen to a tape of that meeting. If, I don't know, some circumstances they might not. It's up to, it was up to Doe. Anyway, so that was 1987, and in the list of things that were in the tape log that I encourage people to get a hold of in itself. To me, it's
well, you're not supposed to do that because
interesting read.
The
I can't tell you where to get it, but I can tell you that I hope that you get it. Right? Okay. Anyway, so
I just don't.
so astronaut training manual. That's what they labeled this tape as. Talking also about mind development, which is extraordinary. Extraordinary, to me, thoughts from Doe that to me were a new depth of understanding of the whole idea that they talked about from 1975, that discarnates were basically using human vehicles as timeshare devices, and that thought forms were also completely real and had even he talks about he's talked about before as like a plasma kind of physicality, but it's organized like mind frames of mind. How he's like puzzled how there's no public um, uh, study of this, the unseen world. Because I think the lower forces are so bank on getting people to just think that they're all there is. I don't know. That might not be the reason, but Joseph Coates, hello. How are you?
Hi, Joseph.
Um. So. Uh. So the other subjects that were covered in the tape, which I started to talk about, was mind development and vibrations, and they were doing it because for a writing strategy, actually, on how to communicate to humans um,
Well, I think that's what
without religious terminology.
It was the astronaut training manual, right?
Right, that's what the astronaut training manual would be. and
Scientific terms, that's right.
right, scientific terms instead of religiosity or
Hmm.
and spiritual, even not even spiritual terms. In the in whatever context of spirituality you want to think of it as. From the spiritualist point of view, that they were called the people that were interested in the spirit world, the incarnates, the ghosts. There's that genre, so to speak, has been going on for recorded history, I believe. With people having evidences of uh, things that go just of and even probably have more evidence than we have now, I would think. And maybe that's because so many minds have degraded this atmosphere, like Doe talks about in his tape, as vehicles that become dust are inhabited by minds that become dust because those minds lose their battery. And to me, that I don't know how that works exactly. And he said he wasn't trying to explain it all in great detail.
Hold on.
I'm stopped again.
Just check OBS. Yeah, it's lagging pretty bad.
Still broadcasting.
Your voice is coming through normal.
Oh, that's good. We're examining the connection because we've got some indications here that.
Yeah, it seems to be like the video is lagging, but the voice is not. So that's good. Okay. I'm just trying to be conscious of it because you don't want to be
Excuse me.
talking while you're not streaming, right?
Talking when I'm not streaming.
Like happened before.
Right, right,
Before we realized, like,
right.
oops.
See, we got cut off before, and I probably talked for 10 minutes before we got cut off. So it seems like we're still going.
Yeah, I think so. It's just like I said, the video is choppy,
Okay.
but the audio is coming through fine.
All right. Let me get back my screen that I want
Sorry.
to guide my thoughts by.
Yeah, the distractions. Alright.
Is anything in the chat room? Nothing new in the chat room.
Get to the tape. I don't know if people heard the Adam and Eve stuff.
Right. I'm going to get to that. That's right. That's where we are actually. So when he was talking about mind development, um, well, they were talking about how to express to humans among the public about how thoughts work.
Mm.
That was just one of the things they talked about, and and so Doe said about that he knows that how many times he told the class about the times when he and T would go to the grocery store, and she'd be in one aisle and he'd be in another one, and he wasn't able to. He learned that he couldn't pass a spot that T had stopped at without looking at it. Uh, so I guess he must have communicated that to him, to T.
He could feel her vibration.
T could feel her vibration.
He could feel her vibration.
Yes, he could feel her vibration, and it's because she knew T. I mean, it's because Doe knew T so well. It doesn't mean he knew everything about him. Jeez, I'm
I
reversing that.
know. Why do you keep saying
That's
that?
weird.
You did it before too.
Oh wow, I'm losing my pronoun sense.
Well, maybe it's not a bad thing. Anyway,
So, well, they are both genders. You know, they're not any gender
anyway,
anymore.
don't get sidetracked.
They don't have gender in the next level.
That he could feel T's vibration and that part of the
Yeah, and so the point was that if scientists were able to examine it, but they're not allowed to in a sense because the next level doesn't give them the way of identifying thoughts as reality. So I mean, a human can't make a device that it can make a human device that thoughts can be broadcast through, right? We have that, but we don't have a device that uh, can show uh, a direct thought being directed to another being, right, and back. We don't have any devices that can test that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think so.
I know we can test the frequencies of like with an oscilloscope. You know, of thoughts, different wavelengths of the mind and the brain, but I don't think we have any way of really uh, dissecting a thought form.
Mm-mm.
We know how they're made when we express them
No, we don't know
in
how
our
they're.
language.
I don't think we know how they're made in the brain, though.
No, we don't know how they. We know where they reside sometimes. I guess feelings in different centers, having to do with
Right.
different types of activity
So they
that
say.
they can test that, right?
So they say.
Right, right. According to their best determination so far, I think they probably learned a lot of things
Yeah, definitely.
that
They,
are a scientific method. You can do it over and over again.
yeah, and brains have been dissected and probed and
Right,
tested and all kinds of stuff. Open brain surgery.
right.
All that stuff's definitely, people have
Yeah,
definitely learned quite a
and
bit.
plenty of that happening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they don't know how to actually,
Measure a thought.
yeah, measure the thought and find what's attached to. It's like, is it part of a thread?
Right, what's thinking it?
Yeah, what's thinking it, right? Too, what's thinking it, and
Coming from.
and where it came from. Is it emanation from the genes? That's another thing Doe talked about in the tape that we're talking about tonight. That what he was talking about were thought forms, not the ones that were coming from the genes, because that's another source of thought forms in our minds. He called it the time capsule in the tape. And that time capsule is triggering things to happen in potentially all ways of the human vehicle. And, and even happening at certain ages, or age ranges. So anyway, so that's another form of where thoughts come from. But and the other form is from the space alien souls that know how to transmit thoughts to people. I guess they have that technology, or those souls learned that
They're-
technology, and they know how to use, and they have vehicles that can do it.
It's a lower vibration, right?
But see, we're doing that too. And he said that in this,
Yeah.
that everybody's doing this, this thing of reading each other's thoughts, whether we registers or not, and how it registers and how clear it is. And Kathy and I have experienced this recently, to
Uh,
where we finished each other's sentences in a text before, while the other person was typing. I was saying something about it.
right. We said the same thing.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that we're of one mind, but we're definitely picking up on each other's thoughts because we also
Well, and
know
you'll
how we
sing a
think.
song that I was listening to that day.
Yeah, yeah.
All kinds of
So,
fun stuff.
so we are timeshare plants, computerized plants with multidimensional. The unseen parts of us is like a different dimension,
Mm-hmm.
and and then we get distracted sometimes by thinking, the future and the past. We can go back and forth in the future and the past, which T and Do explained was the only way we could do that is if we go to a place that is like the past was on Earth, you know, or
Well,
or
Doe talks about a
or be
type
with
of
people that are living more in the past.
he talks about a type of time travel in the 700. Some of the 700 tapes. If you search
Yeah,
on them,
it's going to the next level. That's time travel.
So yeah, he says something, but it's like related to the class. If I can't remember correctly, but if
Well, we
anybody,
can go look it up,
yeah,
but in the 700 somewhere.
yeah, I think it's like 720 something. I could be wrong. I think it's like where he's talking about alien boxes or
You might see
something.
it actually in the tape log.
That's what I was
You
saying.
might see
If
it
you,
talked about
yeah,
in
if
the
you,
comments. Yeah, I'd
if you
like to.
search
I'd
the
like to
tape
revisit
log.
that. But from what I understand, that I was trying to express that. Anyway, moving along.
Moving right along.
So, he's talked about it also as blobs of energy, and that sometimes he didn't know whether a blob was sent to him. And in this tape, actually, 260, he says that he feels like he was visited by T. Well, he didn't say it exactly that way.
We're getting a blessing.
Yeah, where did I put that?
So I feel like we're getting a
He
blessing.
says, I feel like we are having a blessing that T gave me. And he said he hopes he deserves it and feels his conduct hasn't been deserving of it. Now, what isn't deserving in his mind can mean not asking T for how she might do something or say something, and or not asking T what T thinks about using this color on
Hey.
on a wall or something that he was painting. I mean, it could be that trivial kind of, and uh, what he's saying that he doesn't feel like he's one aspect of not deserving. Um, but another one is because he knows that he can't second guess his older member, and he knows that his older member's standard is higher than his. It's just the way it works. It's like it's the only replica of that, in the human kingdom that I'm aware of is between a parent and a child, to where the parent knows the child is a child. There's no question about that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the child is learning what the parent is, but has an instinct to know that
That's the ultimate authority at that time
yeah,
in the beginning.
that's their their God for all intents and purposes. Um, I guess that's why it's so bad when they get abused,
Mm-hmm.
because you're basically breaking that individual. And see, that's why the next level knows what things are going to happen in a general sense, because they don't know they know in very specific senses too, but they don't know everything about it because humans have free will. So they don't know exactly what humans are going to do at any given time. Although probably if they had statistics, they could probably judge it, and be right most of the time because they know the way they can see the overview. It's like uh, but they don't necessarily have. Uh, well, I think they do. I think they have access to radio stations and stuff. I don't know if they have a crew monitoring that and then translating that to some kind of medium that everybody could receive that wanted to look at it or something. I don't know what they do for that. But I don't think they'd be doing it like for humor. I don't know. It just doesn't strike me
Yeah,
that the
right.
next level would do that for humor,
Playing around.
like observing humans and what they're doing, or in any way that would be against them, or
Scientific.
yeah, it would be scientific. But it also could be fun, I imagine. I think it's most fun though when they see individuals trying to grow because that's joy to them. And I understand that joy. I understand that feeling. I do. I have that feeling. Um, so Doe says, I'm going to read the paragraphs above that one that I was reading. The Doe says something about there being an energy field that the mind begins to develop to become something it could own its own identity, it could, as all its own identity. I didn't word that right when I wrote it. That can transfer to another vehicle. That's the problem when I do these quick edits on this stuff. It comes out looking stupid.
Well, don't beat yourself up too much. Unless you want to.
Yeah, I won't beat myself up too much. Bam, bam.
Mm.
Begin to develop to become something it could, as all, its own identity that can transfer to another vehicle. So, um, so there's a whole bunch in that, and I didn't get it all right. So
It was a
please
lot.
go listen to it. I was like astonished while I was writing this. It was very hard for me to write this notes to this, and because I was seeing parts of it that I never imagined before. Um, to be put in the words that he was choosing, seemed to have so much more description to them, and I love that. At the time when I was sitting there, I didn't have a clue. I honestly know that but I got the feeling of it. I got the mind of it. I got the thought of it. At the time to the degree that I did. I'm not saying I got it all. I didn't. Tina talked about that all the time with thoughts. Well, we don't get them all. The intention behind them depends on what they are, of course. Uh, you know, I mean, it's very simple ones, of course. I'm not going to try to pretend to, know where they become more complex, but uh, like an image, say a picture is worth 1,000 words, okay? So we don't know how the thoughts are organized to where they are potentially images.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say the word world,
World.
that's,
I see a globe with, the Earth
yeah, me too.
when you say the world.
Right. But the whole idea of the what was happening in the human kingdom is that the members of the next level, which includes any that obtained some kind of degree of elementary membership, um, uh, after the Jesus part of the experiment, and any of the and younger souls, that were planted during the Jesus experiment and the other experiments, like the Moses experiment. There were
Well, and
no
even back
doubt.
to Adam and Eve.
Yeah, I don't know how many souls were planted during the Adam and Eve time because I don't know if there was. I don't know. I just know that the Moses experiment, according to Tiendo, from best I understand it, and the Jesus part of the experiment, uh, or when lessons were being given, I guess, by an older member that was incarnate. When, but the Adam and
Okay.
Eve, which let's get on to the Adam and Eve though, because I don't know uh, I- if
That's the only
you're
reason
right
why I
about
said
that.
because of
You know
he
what?
said that Adam was, since he had a lower thought of
Yeah,
separating from his older member, that allowed other lower thought forms to come into the garden
say that again, because I like the way you say that.
and influence Eve as well. The snake
Right.
was a lower
Could have
form.
even been a mammal kind of snake, right? Or whatever you call a snake, a reptile,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was hungry.
Right, and so Eve may have gotten that thought to be hungry
Right.
because the snake, she was picking up on the lower thought forms that lower beings in the garden were having.
Which
She was
could have
no
been
longer vibrating at a higher thought level.
right. Which could have included who were there. Which I think did include the fact that Lucifer was there, the fallen angel soul that was
Right.
known as Lucifer.
Right.
So the space alien influence was at present at that time too. So so that's where see Eve was. Uh, what I remembered from Doe another time he said that um, which Kathy just repeated, but in a little bit different terms, and that Adam, his first going off the separating from his older member, was wanting uh, something different than he had. He wanted a helpmate, and he had tasks to do. I talked about that in the last live stream as well. Whatever they were, to name things, whatever. It might seem menial, but it doesn't matter to the next level if the younger member that's in the human experience for the first time uh, uh, um, is not happy with what his older member gives him to do. It shows that there's some problem there with that older member, that younger member, that they need to work out.
Not the older member.
No, there's no problem with the older member because the older member's standards are according to its relationship with its older member, that individual's older member, and
I don't
so
know if
it's
you're
always
saying.
upward. in the relationships, and that's why there's no corruption in it. I mean, we're in human kingdom, you got the opposite. Humans want to have lots of people they can uh, lord over. Some of them, because they think they deserve it, because they think they've got it, or society convinced them that they've got it in whatever vein that surfaces as. Anyway, so it all becomes lessons for everybody anyway, but it's harder and harder to get out of certain lessons because we won't even allow our minds to think about certain things. And because of that, we don't have that mind frame. That's something that's also coming out of this tape. That that the next level, I think he was talking about that in the context, I think, of the next level sending a frame of mind, a mind frame, as like an object or a blob to people, direct individuals, but that could also apply to many individuals and even do it astronomically,
Oh yeah, that's right.
he said.
Yeah.
So, that shows the technology they have.
Yeah.
So, uh,
There's some stuff in the comments. The chat. Oh my god, look at the chat.
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
So Hyper Baroque says the good people are at it again, just making their own decent efforts to explain, relate, and emphasize the teachings that come from Heaven's Gate. A high five to Kathy and Sawyer as I set aside my routines and chores to take part in listening to these potentially important spiritual teachings. Thank you. That's nice. I like positivity. I can't deny that. It's nice to hear that you're feeling good about it. What we're doing here. Thank you. So I'll go right down to Odo was right. It says Keys Pugh, P-U-G-H. I'm not sure how to say that word, but power to you. I think he was also right. Correct. Accurate, more realistic. Um, um, and many more little keywords that I'm not going to try to bring in right now. But futuristic.
that's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of his
Okay,
time.
so Hyper
But
Baroque is
also
going to have a
ahead.
little conversation with the individual Key Pugh. We'll see if they talk. You all talk. But Sawyer and Kathy missed the first big, but glad to be here. From Finch.
That's Finch got back?
Yeah, Finch is back. I don't know what he means though about.
Because
that
we got
person.
disconnected before.
Oh, okay, all right.
I could be wrong about that.
Yeah,
I shouldn't
yeah,
say
but
it like that.
I saw you there. Maybe you didn't stay long either. Beyond to the point to where it disconnected on its own.
Wah, wah, wah.
We lost it, and so we had to start it over again. And I think well, it still exists, I guess. somebody wants
Yeah,
to watch it.
that 9 minutes is up.
Maybe it would be a good short. I don't know. Make a short with, anyway. What do I do? Okay, back to the chat. See
Short,
if there's
short.
anything new in the chat.
We wear short, short.
No, there's not. So I'm going to go back to my notes.
Back to the notes. Number three, number three. Oh, sorry, that's my.
Yeah, I'm going backwards in my notes. But,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's true. Those, okay, yeah, it's, the third point I put on my screen there. It says, it's through those who choose to be in Tiando's students. Whenever that happens while they were here and for as long after they left in 1997, we have vehicles to deposit those next level Tiendo provided thoughts through. Guys, what a convoluted thought. Oh boy, I gotta learn to speak more in little pieces because my organizational skills are going downhill. But,
Lower forces, keep going. Don't listen to it.
alright, thanks.
You're welcome.
So all I was trying to say, in short, was that we have their information now, and when we can provide it to others, we're depositing thoughts. And in our minds, actually, we're depositing thoughts too, but they don't go as many places. I don't think they just hang around wherever they are, designed. I mean, made. I don't know if they can. You can. I don't know how strong uh, human vehicles are in terms of how far they can project their thoughts. I don't remember Doe talking about that either. So, anyway, but I kind of think that they can't control them that much. But apparently the space aliens can somehow. I'm not sure how they do it.
Frequencies.
Yeah, because it's frequencies, right?
There was the music that was talked about too. That was brought up.
Yeah, talking about music with frequencies. Yeah, that the lower frequencies seem to stimulate lower behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And the student that asked was wondering if the higher music could be used by you guys.
Right, and I wasn't clear whether Doe was affirmative to that.
Yeah, he said for sure.
Oh, okay.
But that's all he said.
Right,
And he
because
went on to, I think, talk about Adam and Eve, maybe. I'm probably wrong about the timing of that. What came after when he was.
yeah, because talking about the way that Eve, like you talked about before, was influenced by some animal,
The snake.
uh, a snake,
Mm-hmm.
that was vibrating hunger. Yeah, he was thinking that that's could have been something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the reason why that because of Adam's um, choice to want a helpmate, that started that into motion of having uh, that avenue of influence, I guess, from the lower forces.
Right.
Because maybe Adam wouldn't have thought about. I don't know if Adam would have been affected by the snake being there just as easily. In fact, I think Doe even indicated that it could have been Adam or Eve or both of them that were affected in the same way by the lessons and their responses to them. I'm not sure if I'm expressing that very well, but Um, and he talks about how in the tape about uh, um, how to express to humans, and about like I said before about how thoughts work. And he talks about how because of I went through this example already. I'm back down to there in my notes. I'm sorry, but when they would go to the grocery store, so you get out to
Oh yeah.
if you want to hear that story, where they would pick up the thoughts that were left behind in the grocery store by one another, and saying that all humans are all students and the humans go through that kind of thing, whether they know it or not.
Mhm.
So we're all like we're walking to the grocery store. We're subject. I was wondering about that for quite a while. So I would go to the grocery store and sometimes feel like, gosh, isn't there something here I want to buy? You know, I wasn't going there to buy something. I was going there, and I was being influenced by everybody wanting to buy something. The whole place is filled with it.
Yeah.
And so that's why they can make so much money because of all the buying things people are buying that they didn't know that they wanted.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
A new gadget for this, or a new pair of pants or shorts for that, or and see, I think regardless of how prophetic it is that we're going through the trade wars that are happening with the Trump administration. Um, uh, I can't help but think of it as if it ends up being higher prices for a bunch of stuff, it's probably gonna some people are just gonna pay it because they got it. So for that class it's not gonna matter, but for the class that can't afford the things, they'll find other ways of doing stuff. They'll
Yeah.
buy other stuff.
We will.
Yeah,
Yes, we will.
yeah, we will.
It's true.
It's because we have to. You know, we're basically in survival mode, paying for our sticks. No, our sticks, earning sticks to pay for our food. T&O called them sticks, money.
Here comes the carts.
Idle mind is the devil's playground. Yeah, I've heard that. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I think I would add to that. Not that you wouldn't. I'm not trying to compare or anything because that'd be ridiculous. But uh, um, a mind that asks the next level, what are we idle with? What is our mind on that isn't idling? You know, so we can have our mind full of stuff and maybe not even hear the devil's thoughts, right? Even though that's their playground, like you said, I believe that is their, it's their way of manipulating the human kingdom. They've got the mind program going. They've put this into our minds that this is reality. This is the way it's meant to be, and I'm talking about right down to the scientific level of thinking that we're here to make babies.
Sorry.
Make those babies. When the next level wants us to outgrow making babies. Because they want us to become a child and a teenager and uh, a college graduate into membership in the next level. Not because they need us. They don't need us for anything. And that's why they can tell us exactly what needs to happen. as they as they are given to give to us in a way that we can handle it for whatever frequency of mind or vibrationally, in what frame of mind we are floating around in. Because if you surround yourself by a lot of mind that has certain characteristics, then depending on your own characteristics genetically and mentally, since you've been in the vehicle that you're in, you're going to see things in a certain way. And getting out of that uh, is stimulated, but not if you don't go after it. And so you can actually form, I think, uh, a framework is that's I mean I like talking about this because it's a even if it doesn't make any sense because it's fun to try to illustrate what the possibilities might be regarding structure to mind and thoughts and souls and things that we've heard about but we don't have scientific understanding of. And because the next level hasn't given to us except through philosophies and psychological and thinking like the great psychoanalysts and things in the past and all bringing in different views of and the religionists and the spiritualists and the pagans uh, and the atheists. It doesn't make any difference because everybody's got thoughts.
I don't see the cards yet. Gosh, it's
So it
jam
makes it look like a tree. It makes it look like a waves, a tree with waves in it or something. I don't know.
A tree with waves in it.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to drive through here again like they did last time.
And then these thoughts can be picked up by another vehicle. I'm sorry.
No.
And or a mind that is in discarnate state uh, and expressed by having another vehicle express it. So when you have a thought of, I want to do this or I want to do that, that could be a discarnate right next to you, literally, maybe on top of you. I don't know exactly what the placement is with the physical plasma, but stimulating us to have that thought. And the next level can do that as well. But the next level does it to help us, where the discarnates do it because it's their program to do it. They want to have the same. They want to get us to do stuff that they used to do when they were living in a human vehicle, because that's their program. They established that artificial intelligence that wasn't artificial at the time when it was being developed. It was actually biologically produced frequencies. So, yeah, I don't know. Just the way he was expressing it. Uh,
Did Joseph Coates listen to 260 yet?
yeah, Joseph Coates, you were ahead of us in this order of listening to the tapes. I wonder if you listened to 260 yet. Maybe you said so down below. I'll go back to the chat. Um, Okay, yeah, Steve Jackson. I'm glad you came into the chat because I
I
did.
was thinking about him. Did he send us his email, his address?
I didn't see it unless he.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I didn't see it.
I didn't look that on
But
his.
I realized he asked a question in the last chat, and I've got a file somewhere on my desktop that has that question in it. So I'm going to go back to that after I talk to you about try to respond to what you're asking here. It says, "Hey S&C, in the exit interviews, not the final class video, it appears some pairs dressed identically." Oh, that was what you talked about, I think. At least within the limitations of their available clothes. What was the purpose of that?
I don't think we were talking about a uniform.
No, that last one wasn't about. Well, yeah, it was, but it was who came up with what they wore. No, who
No,
came
I
up with.
think he's talking about the exit interviews. Is that what he said? The exit interview where, there's two on film at a time and they're saying their.
Right.
I think. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay. What was the purpose of their dressing close to identical? I guess that's the question, right? Yeah, I think so. It says it appears some pairs dressed identically. What was the purpose of that? And and yes, it's not identical, but he's expressing that it's identical within the limitations of their available clothing. And that's true. We dressed within the limitations of the
But
clothing
you
that
would
was.
buy whatever clothing that you were.
We didn't buy our own clothing.
But I'm saying T and Doe could have bought
Sometimes we did.
whatever clothing.
Yeah.
You guys wore the type of clothing that you wore for specific reasons, like the double
Yes.
breasted pockets, and
Right.
in one of the Beyond Humans, Doe's talking about that.
Yes. Like T and Doe brought us clothing that was loose and it would cover the waist so you wouldn't see the shape of the vehicle to influence you in some way,
Whether male or female.
whether male or female. And they also chose to have big pockets because of how they also would kind of cover the females.
On both sides.
Yeah, on both sides.
Double.
And but also we could put our notebooks in them. We had 3x5 notebooks. You could put in that top pocket there if you wanted to. And they were buttoned. We always had shirts that were buttoned, and they were long sleeve, very lightweight in the summer. But we were usually in air conditioning in the summer when we were living that way. And
Everybody could wear everybody else's clothing to a certain degree, right?
yes, unless there was a specific. We had our own shoes though. We didn't wear each other's shoes. And we generally had tennis shoes, like the sneakers or.
So it's like there was like one communal closet or something.
Yeah, there were one closet that would have all a big walk-in closet, and because in the homes we lived in, we had big closets,
Right.
and more than one, of course. You'd have your raincoats and stuff that were all communal. Underwear was communal, except no. I think underwear might have tags in it. We had some things that we had little laundry tags
Oh
with
yeah,
our
we got
names.
your little tag.
Yeah,
Teeny
we would put in things like if a certain pair of pants fit you a certain way, then you'd be the only one that'd be wearing it. Somebody else wouldn't take it and wear it. Like if you had to wear it to work, because we did office jobs and and other all kinds of. So,
blaring their horns.
but primarily what you were seeing were the things I already talked about, and buttoning the top button so that somebody's saw you wouldn't see if somebody had a hairy chest or just even see more of the female's neck, if that's what attracts you, because pretty much everything can be an attraction for somebody. And so they were covering up most of the flesh that they could without going to an extreme. They didn't want to look weird in public beyond the way that they did look.
We. You were with them for 19 years?
Yes, we was true.
I always think it's weird when you say they. Like, why are you saying they? You were there.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
because
sorry. Can they come?
no, it's good to say we. I think because
You were there for
I do want people to know that
Oh, there they are.
I'm not just making something up.
We get distracted
I had
by the
experience.
golf cart parade.
Oh yeah, there's a parade happening. That's when you hear that sports horn in the background. Maybe you heard it. Let's see. So I don't know if that was a decent answer to that question, Steve Jackson. But let me go back to your other one. Let's see, where was that?
I always like when people are new and they don't know what's going on, like we were one time. That's good. They didn't come down here this time.
I forgot how to make the desktop visible.
Do you press the Windows button?
I did that. Function button maybe? No. Alt? Well, I can get over to here anyway. So, I can find it now.
They're kicking up a lot of dust this time around. I haven't seen our neighbors yet.
I found it. Yes, it said, Hey Sawyer, in the Beyond Human series, there were usually two students who posed the questions to Doe. Who came up with those questions? And I believe that it could be accurately stated because I was there when they were formulating questions, not all the time, of course, because I wasn't with Doe all the time, but Doe and students were coming up with the questions. According to their conversations, according to the meetings that they held, all the things that Doe, occurred to Doe that were good examples to bring into his talk. So yes, he did it. Really, he came up with the questions. But
There's a couple meetings where you guys are going over it.
yeah, that's my point. That we had meetings where we went over questions, and students had things to say about it.
Audio tapes, that you can hear.
Yeah, there's audio tapes that show that conversations about
Go on.
things that they were doing or were about to do, or
But I mean, you guys specifically were talked about the Beyond Human series and went over the questions, and it was going to be you
right.
guys on camera first, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
That's what I was referring to.
yeah. But I
So
think
if you look around the time frame of what 1991, when you guys put those out, the end of 91, 92.
well, beginning of '92, I think is more.
So those meetings were like in that time frame. So if anybody had access to the audios, then they could, because I can't remember the exact numbers.
Right. So I don't know if you heard Kathy, but she was saying that she believes there's audio tapes where students are talking about the questions that they'll be asking and the format and who's going to be speaking and during the Beyond Human series videotapes.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah, I'm there as well. So there's audio tapes talking about that. So it shows who's coming up with everything. But ultimately it's Doe.
Yeah, those.
And he's taking input from the students that he's asking for. And that's why it's happening in the right way.
And they're still going.
Because really, the next level way is not to impose something on anybody, but to, so anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. Well, except for the way that they designed the garden. That's imposing on us. Okay, there's always a way of kind of striking out against whenever we're talking about next level to make it look like it's,
That's definitely the most that we've had in since we
Oh, yeah?
seems like it. They're still going.
Oh, really? Yeah, they are.
Quite a bit of golf carts. They're showing out for Memorial Day.
Well, I can actually give you one experience, Steve Jackson, because I was on the video in the Beyond Human series a few times, and in the first one, I think,
You're in 1 and 2.
Doe asks me,
4.
because it was planned ahead, that he was gonna ask me the question of what did Scripture say about the definition of faith?
Oh, that one's number 7, I think.
That's tape number 7.
You're in like 5 of them. You're in like 5 of the Beyond Humans. The first one, you guys don't talk at all. And at the very end of it, he goes, "You didn't say a bloomin' thing."
Right.
But the next time, you guys, because it was the first tape. But it's
Maybe
not-
that's when he
it's-
instigated us having a plan to say something.
Probably, maybe, I don't know.
But we did say something when he asked us what the next question was.
That was in Beyond Human number 2.
So one, he didn't even ask about the question.
1, he just started going, and
Yeah, because he
An
had so
hour
much to
passed.
say in that introductory one.
yeah, an hour passed, and then he said,
Yeah.
"You haven't asked me a
Yeah.
single
So
question." Yeah,
okay,
there you go.
I misremembered that.
I've listened
But-
to number 1
She's
probably
listened to it probably 10 times.
1,000 times. I've
1,000
more
times.
than 10.
Yeah.
That's my go-to to. That's my
Right.
bedtime story.
Yeah.
It's time to go to bed, and we have 8 hours.
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll talk a little more and then we'll bring it to a close, I
I'm
guess.
just kidding, yeah.
Huh?
I was just saying.
Just joking around.
That's our alarm, though.
Oh yeah, we have that alarm.
That says that we have.
So we got somebody's got to work tomorrow.
One or the other.
Yeah,
Probably gonna be you. No, I'm just kidding.
it might be me. It'd be okay.
The tapes.
If it's not, I'm gonna work on the you know what.
Yeah.
So the tape, yes.
Well, oh, I should put this down.
See
Right?
if we're still ticking.
We are. I just.
Says we're still live.
Yeah, we are. Good night, YouTube.
Gosh, but it was an hour ago that I had my arms folded. No, I didn't. I had them folded a minute ago.
No, we're not. We're not leaving just
Looks
yet.
like I'm frozen right now.
It's going. It just takes a long time to catch up. But Joseph Coates asked a question.
All right.
Oh, and there's Adelaide. Did you say that? And then
No.
Omar asked a question. Well, Hyper Baroque. A full vessel is full. That is for sure. Oh, you read that. And then Adela says hi. And then Omar says, after reaching next level, if we have to work again on our bodies, souls for another supposed higher level, then what is the fun? When to have, enjoy the life. When is the time to have fun and enjoy this life if all we're going to do is sit around and work on higher level stuff? I think that's what you're asking, Omar. I could have.
Uh, well, we're potentially working on it all the time, or not. In degrees of it, potentially. When we overcome a big difficulty, and it's no longer taking us over in a way, or affecting our health in a negative way, or and we've gotten rid of that behavior and way, then we've grown as a more in a higher way. That's a higher way of growing. It has nothing to do with what. Well, I mean, the religions teach what I'm saying as well, but it's kind of like masqueraded in in all the other things that represent the religion. So I mean, like people that are in the religions or philosophy or spirituality, they can be thinking that they're in the higher realms of thought, but they're not necessarily. It depends on because it depends on their behaviors and ways, and how they're responding to others and what they're doing in their lives in relationship to others, because it's through working with each other and ourselves, of course, that we get lessons. If we're never around anybody else, and we're never communicating with anybody else, then how do we expect to be confronted with the things about us that would be beneficial to change? If we were of a mindset of thinking that we enjoyed advancement, but maybe a lot of people don't care about advancement, and they think that just to eat, sleep, and drink, like Kathy was saying, was enough for them. I mean, but a lot of people, it's not enough, and that's why they put their minds into careers and families and pursuit of knowledge and philosophies and studying the arts and all the things that are potentially available to us in the human kingdom, and working menial jobs is part of that too, and but then in our spare time, looking at this and looking at that, and enjoying this and having problems with that, and getting in car accidents, and everything that happens to us is potentially a lesson. That's the true higher thinking is when we're looking to convert the negatives into positives. Now, if we don't know how, if we
and
don't,
it's a lot funner to be, positive than it is to be negative. So, like, if something quote unquote negative happens to you, it's only negative if you take it. I mean, of course, some things can be very negative, like your dog dies. That's negative. But you get a ticket. That's negative, and it's going to cost you money. But it's a positive in that obey the speed limit.
you can get more keen.
Right. Obey the speed limit, and then you're not going to get tickets. And it actually decreases your chances of getting in an accident. However stupid and hokey that sounds, facts are facts. Statistics are,
They work in that way.
it's,
Yeah.
if you are speeding,
It
you're
makes
more
sense.
liable to get in an accident. So
Right.
that cop could have just saved your life by giving you a $260 ticket.
And even if
And
it means
the
having
way,
more time to miss a deer and stuff,
but the point I was trying to make that I didn't make very well was that the way you react to getting that ticket is what can be the fun part. Instead of being upset and crying or getting really mad and, taking it out on somebody else somewhere, 5 minutes down the road or whatever, you can choose not to react at all negatively. You can choose to think,
you can say, what is there in this to learn about this?
which is, I shouldn't be speeding. So you can choose to be angry with yourself, but that's pointless too. The choice is, don't engage in behavior that will cause interactions you don't wish to have. Like, I picked up this woman driving Uber, and she was so upset at how her daughter was treating her, and was treating her like a babysitter, and but her daughter had this big huge house overlooking the city, and um like, instead of the mom enjoying that and spending time with her grandchildren, she instead was, harping on everything that her daughter wasn't doing for her, like ordering her food, or, saying thank you all the time. Or, I mean, I don't know what their dynamics were, but the lady was choosing to feel bad when she could have instead felt fine. You
Of
don't
course,
have
sometimes
to
it
feel
takes a
that
lot of
way.
time to feel fine about certain things, right?
Yeah, and if somebody is really treating you badly, stop hanging out with them. Period. I don't care what relation they are to you. Don't be their friend
Yeah. Yeah. I
until
mean,
they stop. And if they don't, then I'm sorry. That's all there is to it.
if people are good, are friends to where they have a certain amount of confiding in one another, things, and they're open to criticism, that's a different thing. But to just if you're around
Somebody's
somebody that's
hurting
just
you, and
making you feel bad,
yeah, hurting you, using you, putting you
yeah,
down,
yeah,
making you feel like crap. Like,
I,
that's not happens to be your sister or your mother or your
yeah,
like, whoever it is. Like,
right.
I'm sorry, I can't be around you. Goodbye.
So Hyperbrook said that Taoism coincides in many axial coincidences, as I have seen it firsthand while studying Heaven's Gate, the teachings of T and Do, under Sawyer and Kathy. That is my standard for true spirituality. Well, I like that standard.
Taoism has a lot of, yeah, nice,
No, I don't. I don't. I don't. I'm not saying that my standard is the same as the Taoist
but
standards.
there could be
But
parallels.
yeah, I can. I can see that. I can. I know that all the religions have
Some
uh,
truth.
parallels that have truth in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because according to T and Do, which makes sense to me when I first heard them talk about it, anyway. But we're created by the next level. I mean, not created like they built by the next level, sending their older members into a community of any place on the globe at any time and date, when the purpose of that person coming into that area is to provide uplifted ways of thinking and everything that entails, even technologically and everything. Okay, that is actually what. And when people get to know those people, and then it ends up becoming what we know today as a religion after they leave. Because as soon after they leave, then when the truth tellers are gone, that are even left behind by whatever way, Doe talked about this. Uh, then uh, then then the mind goes away. As long as somebody is still putting it out there, and that could be, that could be all kinds of people right now. It could be hundreds of people right now that could be uh, telling other people about what T and O are teaching, and that would be telling the truth. And so, that this could be, I don't know how many years the next level or how much time the next level. I shouldn't put it in any terms of time when I say it.
Well, they were just talking about the 16 minutes being, so
Yeah.
the time is definitely.
So yeah. Anyway, I'll get on to the chat because Omar says after reaching the next level. Oh, Adelia Tejeda. I'm not sure how to say that last name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. Hi, Sawyer, and hello to you. And after reaching, says Omar, after reaching the next level, if we have to work again on our bodies, souls, for another supposed higher level, then what is the fun? Oh, we already talked about that. When to have enjoy the life. Oh,
All right, yes, we already talked about that, so go on to the next
except
thing.
the enjoy the life part.
Well, we did talk about that, so.
Okay. So Hyperbrook says, if it works with the Tao, then it works. I say this from three perspectives: an engineer, as a spiritual explorer, and as an idiot. That's funny. Joseph says, I haven't listened to 260 yet, but I'll check it out tonight. Been meaning to put a tape on.
Yeah, it's only 35 minutes, so it goes super quick.
Yeah, and gosh, I still might have to listen to it again, but there's so many to listen to.
I listened to it 2 times in the same day.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that it's insane. Like, I think I'm hearing it all.
Oh yeah, Hyper Baroque. I'm glad you brought that up because he's saying wearing wrinkly clothing is also a form of finery, fine enough in our practicality, post-apocalyptic wardrobe, to not have to deal with anyone's perfectionist bullshit. Anyway, uh, I don't know that any of the class members had wrinkly clothing. In fact, we ironed our clothing. We had the Fiber Lab actually did the ironing. Jim Odie did a lot of ironing. Sam Odie did a lot of ironing. Star Odie did a lot of ironing.
We know that.
And others.
What was it? Alex Odie and who was the other one in that tape that they did not do a lot of ironing.
Right, because they got a lesson that they burned one of those shirts.
Yeah.
Right. Which Doe didn't get angry about.
No.
And but he did say that it was a lesson.
They needed to be more.
That and he described what about it that they could have been more keen to.
Yeah.
And the fact that, if I remember correctly, that they weren't regular ironers
Yeah.
in the classroom.
They were just, I guess, trying to help out.
Right. And so they didn't have the skill, of doing that task.
Know how to set the iron.
And so they ended up burning a shirt.
Two
shirts, right. So it could have occurred to them. They had the, if they were asking enough, but I guess they, but Doe didn't, harp on that. He just, but he wasn't indirect either about telling them that they made a mistake in that, and but there was no punishment, just so you know, and Doe didn't raise his voice.
They were not allowed to iron shirts anymore. No,
that's true, right?
They probably didn't.
I think they were taken off. Not they weren't supposed to do that task, even though they wanted to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But they should have found somebody that had that task.
Well, I think they had asked. I believe it was Chuck Odie.
Oh yeah, right.
And she didn't know what they were ironing.
Oh. Okay.
And it was set at like cotton, which was the highest temperature. And she just said yes, it was a good setting, without like checking it.
That's right. I remember that in the tape.
Yeah.
So it's not like they chose to do it on their own completely. because everybody ended up working a shift in the fiber lab at some point. Even though out-of-crafters like Alex Odie probably did it seldom.
And yourself too.
Yeah, me too. I think I might have ironed something.
One thing.
Yeah, no, not much. No, not much.
Yeah, 'cause you were working.
Right.
Ah, shit, our neighbors are coming back.
Right. Steve Jackson says, yeah, that's a sense that the clothes were communal because not all pairs in the exit video interviews were dressed in matching colors, though some were. That would explain it. Yeah, well, T and O were pretty much the ones that bought most of the clothing. But after T left, of course, Doe would have done it, but helpers could have been doing it also, and it could have been a SAT 3 task to go to Marshalls. That's where usually we shopped, at Marshalls or Ross
Mm.
for less, because they were discounted name brands a lot of times. They had irregularities. They didn't care so much if they had irregularities. So, but they tried to get things that were nice looking as well, and not just for their shapes and their pockets and the pants. We didn't wear shorts. I don't think we ever wore shorts.
Mm.
Even when we went into we had time in a swimming pool, we would put on uh, a jumpsuit that we had that was heavy, you know. But we weren't trying to become swimmers. It was just a way of getting cool when we were living in Phoenix. I remember
Mm.
that. Well, it wasn't actually Phoenix, it was Scottsdale, or maybe it was Paradise Valley, where we had, outdoor pools. And sometimes we had indoor pools in the big homes that we leased. Anyway,
Yeah, I can go next.
so Joseph Coates says,
Mm. Are you glitching?
no, no. So he said, Cypher Baroque says, something I always learn from T and Do is that I am somehow supposed to suppress my sexual desires. I just have never felt myself to be the person who is actually ready to leave my sexual desires. If I was enamored of a member of the Heaven's Gate, is the request actually that I should pull out? What? How are we meant to devaluate the creation of another person? I don't know what the question is. So I don't know, Hyperbroke, what to say to some of that. I mean, you're not supposed to do anything you don't want to do. But if you're going to become a member of the next level, you do have to follow the. Yeah, you're going to have to eventually conquer everything of the human kingdom. And that's and so that always is a process and it's a choice, and to choose what to conquer when and how. You know, so
Was there any rules or any guidance on speaking to non-students when you are out in public?
well, yes, but basically, uh, you be careful not to tell people where we live, because we're living in homes that were single-family homes, and we were living with 35 people in that home sometimes, and sometimes just 20, or or 10 or 12, but or 6, but
A lot more than what
yeah,
you're
but a lot more,
expecting.
more, generally more than what. So if the neighbors saw us, you know, and if they saw how many cars we had, I mean, they may see how many cars we have, but it's not that unusual, like in a suburb area, to have teenagers that have cars and whatever. So you can have 4 cars in a family. Wouldn't be too hard to imagine. So, but we always didn't want to attract attention, right? And we didn't want anybody coming to our house. Uh, and we did have experiences where we had people harassing us at a house because we were wearing hoods that covered our faces outside. It was a fairly big plot, piece of land, and it was very high up above the other houses that were quite a distance away. But if they had like a binocular or something, they could see some pretty strange things in terms of wearing this hooded robe kind of thing. It was actually a jumpsuit that was gray. So we were like little gray aliens. And so some teenagers or something started like haunting us. And Doe ended up getting Riccoti because Riccoti had experience with electronics to come up with and Ligotti, I think, he worked together with him to come up with like a video system with audio on it so that we could say something to them and to tell them that we're watching them in the middle of the night. And so we had night watch, which was a regular routine of watching the heavens and recording anything that we see that's unusual. And night watch then had also the job of looking to see if there was anybody out there, sneaking up on us to watch us. And if we got any inkling of it, we could turn on another light, and we had additional lights put in. And this is all while T was in her vehicle, and and we stopped. We we stopped keeping the hoods on when we went outside because
Why were you wearing the hoods?
because we were T and O were experimenting with uh, seeing how we would respond to one another without the influence of what our vehicle looks like, our face looks like.
Oh, I see.
So not taking somebody's facial expressions and interpreting them, which I mean, we needed to also work on our facial expressions if we have like a sour puss just automatically, somehow we were born that way. Then we were supposed to learn to try to make that into a pleasant look so that so everybody was Joe Vanilla in terms of their what they were dealing with, even if they were going through trauma in their minds in some way. They were learning to control the vehicle to keep it from letting that out to affect anybody else in the crew. Because if you're really working in a tight knit crew and you've got important tasks to do, you don't want your personal difficulties to get in the way of that. So the human environment becomes an avenue for the soul to develop the strength of mind to be able to control a vehicle. And that's why they had a lot of lessons in like walking softly and closing the cabinets very softly so that they don't bang against each other. And that's where this whole idea of, I think, comes from, of not making any sounds, and also not talking so much, not yapping all the time, and um, which I'm certainly guilty of a lot of, but
You're
right
quiet,
now,
too. You're quiet.
no, there's good places for quiet time is good to have, That gets into listening, and the whole idea of meditation is the real true idea is to listen, to calm your vehicle, and then to open up your channels to the highest thoughts you can imagine and see what you know, uh, projecting those thoughts into the heavens. If we're not actually thinking of drawing in from the heavens, then potentially the lower forces can be our Jesus to us. They can be our Krishna. They can be our Buddha. They can be our Taoist, teacher. They can be whatever teacher. They could be a scientist, that's deceased. They can be a lot of things that can try to answer our questions and fulfill our desires.
Mm-hmm.
And it's meant to be that way, so that when the older members come, if we've learned a certain amount of lessons, they'll make sure that we have enough. That some of the vehicles, even a lot of the vehicles, are seeking higher truths or higher levels or however people are thinking about it. Um, it doesn't have to take any kind of form. It's a thirst for growth, thirst for something better. Not that this isn't a beautiful kingdom for this experience. They build into it all the things that can actually lead to wanting to stay here. I don't want to leave it. I never have actually, but I recognize that um, I will grow to want to leave it. Um, but it's got to be on my own time, in my own way. And I don't mean grow to want to commit suicide. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about growing because I'm against suicide. I stand with Tian Do's Our Position Against Suicide. The document they wrote, Our Position Against Suicide, is on the Heaven's Gate website. Very prominent position. It's not within the book. Well, it is within the book, but in talked about in other ways against suicide, like in Stan Modi's document. Uh, that if you want to ask me about, ask me about it, and I'll tell you the address to it. Talks about that we need these vehicles in order to learn lessons through them. That's why human suicide uh, uh, is a waste of time. When right now humans can learn an awful lot from their lessons, no matter how hard they are. But I'm not the judge of anybody, so and what they do. So, um, but I genuinely am in line with their thinking in that regard entirely. So I'm not trying. I'm not being a hypocrite, or I'm not trying to diminish the story by saying that, because for them, they had overcome a lot of the humanness, even in a short time for some, enough to where the next level. So I know that, but I can't prove it to anybody, and so that's why it can look so hard to accept that they did this and that was a positive for them, when it wouldn't be a positive for somebody that hadn't gone through the mind development that they went through. Whenever that happened, that could have happened 2,000 years ago for some of those individuals that joined at the end. And the only thing they needed to do was recognize their older member and get with the program and and leave when the older member decided that it was time for him to leave, and that he wanted anybody that wanted to leave at the same time to leave with him, because he had already been through um, with most of the individuals a huge amount of opportunities for them to recognize that they didn't want to leave. And, uh, and, and if you hear from the students throughout the years, you'll get a sense. You can get a sense. I mean, you can not see this at all. I know that. But you will see that those were independent thinkers that were that believed that they were with their older member. I know that as a fact because that's what I experienced, and I still have that. Thank thank the next level that I still have that because you lose it if you don't show them in some way that you want to hold on to it. Then they're going to be less likely to give you any to let you keep on having that recognition. So I'm thankful for it, and I need to, like Doe, I need to look for ways that I can improve it. Anyway, so
Chat.
yes, Joseph Coates says, well, I forgot to read Hyperbaroque's.
Read it. Read it.
He says, I can treat the higher levels as honest and reliable, but what am I supposed to do when my inability to pull out of the fun part with a member of the Heaven's Gate means that I am not worthy of that? I don't understand what you're saying. I'm not going to try to second guess you there, Hyperbaroque.
All right, move on then. See
Yeah.
what the next, because they might explain
Sorry,
later on
but
down.
Joseph Coates says, I'm learning that lesson right now. I have to apply that more often to my own life and confront it, not just wait for it to get better.
That's right. Gotta make
Challenge
it happen.
myself. The opposite action could be the answer. Yeah, challenging ourselves is. We all can apply that better. There's no question about it. It's a process, and there's going to be times when we're going to, if we're asking the next level for help, if we got to the point to where we actually are trying to ask T and O for help, then then they're going to continue to tailor the help they give us to what they know we can handle if we ask them to help to handle it. I mean, we're not meant to just think that we can handle it on our own. I know I have that. I had that in the classroom. I thought, why would I want to tell Doe about this if I could conquer it? If I can conquer it, and that was true actually. That I didn't want to just tell Doe everything that was in my head that I wasn't allowing in my head anymore. I didn't want to. I just want to get rid of it. If I know that I don't want it in my head, then just get rid of it, and and go on to the next task. We don't want to weigh T and O down with all the things that we are accomplishing. They weren't telling us all the things that we were doing right. And they talked about this a time or two, not that much. Over 19 years, a time or two is not much. So you can't say that they were, bolstering us. Because a human would do it, they'd be always telling you what you did right so that they could keep you happy. That would be more of a lower forces way of getting humans to, act that way. Maybe even it's more of an animal characteristic. I don't know. But I don't think T and O would chastise anyone, Hyper Baroque. You choose to do what you want to do, but there aren't any Heaven's Gate members now. And I don't want to make this conversation about sexuality. I'm not trying to solve anybody's sexual problems. Not that you're asking for that, but you're kind of asking it, and you're being a little too graphic in my mind. And I would prefer you just be general if you're going to talk about sensuality. If you want to know what they're teaching about it, you really just need to read the book, and you can see everything that we're shooting for in that subject. And but the one thing you said about the Tiendo would chastise you for having the impulse. Um, I don't see anything where they chastise anybody. Uh, uh, you're you're simply depending on what you do, and um, is going to be how you're using your mind, how you're using your energy, how you're using your this. Of course, as long as you're not hurting somebody in any shape or form, uh, that's a direct hurting somebody. Not like doing something that somebody else doesn't like that you're doing, but you're not hurting them by it, except they want to be hurt by it. Okay, that's another kind of, unless you're breaching a contract or something. But anyway, those exceptions to all these things. But
I would say if you're feeling called to reduce your sexuality, then that's something that you should work on.
good way of putting it.
If you're not feeling called to do that, then that's that.
Yeah, you don't want to do it. Well, I don't say you don't want to do it because maybe it's better than nothing. But because you're being told to do it, that's what the chastising part of it is. You don't have something in the right in your head about that. I'm not trying to, some little piece of the puzzle hasn't yet fell into place in that regard because they're not telling you. They never tell you what to do. They tell you what
The
is
requirements
expected, the
are.
requirements to be on their crew, to be in heaven. The only way you're going to get into their heaven, the highest heaven, is if you please them. I mean, literally please them.
Well,
Not that, huh?
that sounds weird.
I know it sounds weird. They said that in those terms, but they knew it sounded weird. So I think when Dove said that, he also said that it was very clear that he didn't need to be pleased by us. It's not like a human thing. It's like if you wanna be on the captain of the ship, you've got to please the captain of the ship. You've got to do the job the way the captain wants that job
Well,
done.
you have to be in a frame where you're not going to interfere with them,
Yes.
that where you're on the right vibration. So it's not like you're, and yes, that would be pleasing to them, but I wouldn't. I don't know. It's just I guess it's just it's terminology, but I wouldn't say like you have to please them and cater to their, you know. If you're not pleasing them, if they don't like you, then you're not gonna, get on the ship as a captain or something.
Right, but it's going to have to do with the relationship that you're building with them. If you're building a relationship with them.
Right, but like bringing them milk and cookies is not going to please the captain of
Well, if
the
that's
ship.
the instruction, though, and it might be, that right. Maybe please isn't the word because we've been.
You know what I'm trying to say, though?
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
do. I think I do. Yeah, it's not please the way that uh, it sounds. It's not the best use of words, I think.
Like you need to please the king so he doesn't chop your head off.
Right. The
Or
next
so
level is
he
not going to
gives you
chop your head
special
off.
special favors, whatever.
Right. Well, this is where the Christians, I think, have one thing right is that you can do all the behaviors exactly the way the next level tells you to do them, and if you don't actually um, know who you're looking to, if you don't develop a relationship to some degree with an older member of the next level above human, then those behaviors aren't going to get you. I mean, they may get your vehicle ready to receive a soul from a student if the student, didn't need to overcome certain things, and so they would choose a vehicle that has overcome certain things so that can focus on overcoming other things. Um, I don't know. I'm probably getting off here, so I'm going to get past this. I don't know if that helps you. What
Hyperbrook
Kathy
says
said, I
at the
think, was
end,
really good.
why were the members of Heaven's Gate asked to neuter themselves in order to leave the vessel more easily?
They weren't asked to neuter themselves, and it wasn't. And the reason they did it wasn't to leave their vehicles more easily. Both those things are not facts.
Excuse me.
Both those things are not facts. Let me read them again.
It's the last thing that they said, not the other stuff. Because I agree that other stuff was very inappropriate. I'm not sure why you felt the need to say that to us.
Yeah, I know.
You don't have to share everything.
No, I know.
I think I smashed my finger at some point. It keeps hurting. We're no saints by any means, of course. That's quite obvious, I think. And we're not trying to tell anybody how to do anything because we are the last people to be saying anything about how people should conduct themselves in that regards.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hyperbroke. Appeal to authority. All right, all right, whatever. You got your ways of thinking, and it's fine. But I don't know how much I'm going to be able to communicate with you. We just don't seem to have the same kind of thinking. But if you said those things about, I still don't see that about being told to neuter themselves.
Do you have it on top chat?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Hyperbroke, you sounded like you were talking about having sex with some of the members of Heaven's Gate. So, how do you think we're going to respond to that? Like, why are you talking about having sex with the class members? Why do you think we would be like okay with you talking about that? So, like, what, I don't know why you're acting like that. You've been in the live stream a lot before for years, so I'm not sure what issue you're having right now, but no one's talking about authority or whatever. Like, we don't want to hear you talking about having sex with a group. Like, that's not appropriate.
And you're not doing it anyway, probably.
If
I
you
don't
want to
know.
think
There are no
about
group
that,
members.
if you want to
There is
think
no
about
group.
that in your off time, that's fine. But I don't know why you think that would be like, oh, let me ask Sawyer, is it wrong for me to think about having sex with some of the class members? Like,
Frankly, I thought
what
that you
the
were
fuck,
you were trying to
dude?
bait me or something. Were you trying to bait me, or you were trying to, poke fun at me, and you wanted to see, want to poke the bear kind of thing, see if he gets a little angry or not. So
That's just a weird, I don't
that's what
know.
I thought, but I didn't respond that way because I wanted to take the higher side that you were just confused about some of that, and because there is no group, so there's no Heaven's Gate member that you can be having sex with. So it's not a very good question.
Well,
It's not
whether it's a good question or not, it's not like, what the hell?
right. So, but the other thing about this, what you're saying is as if it's a fact, and it's not a fact that Nobody was asked to neuter themselves, and especially not to leave the vessel more easily. Some of them, only like 7 individuals, had evidence of a castration. So,
It's hot again.
So why would, and they were not asked to do it, and you can hear them talking about it. I bet in some of the tapes that we're not allowed to have yet, because Mark and Sarah are holding them back.
Anyway,
But anyway,
it is getting.
it is getting late. Yeah.
Well, it's not
So
like
anyway,
it's late
but
for us. We're getting up at 3.
but I was there when we were talking about the whole castration, which took place over years of conversation, and I wanted to have the actual procedure. And I'm not going to go through all that with you now because I don't know if you care, to be honest with you, and I want to end the stream. But I just know as a fact that they weren't asked to neuter themselves, and I know as a fact that it had nothing being neutered had nothing to do with
You weren't
leaving the vessel, and I wasn't asked to neuter myself, or even go have somebody else do it, like a surgeon, if you want to put it to the exact words that you used. So,
That water is icky. Right, I know you can't do it now. Sorry. Party town out there. That's about it in chapter.
but yeah, okay, I'm just going to say one thing about it, and then I'm closing the stream. If Hyper Broke is still here, that uh, there's a lot of things that you can learn. So if you're not able to deal with your sexual desires at this time, then focus on what you can deal with. Okay? Focus on what you want to deal with. Try to correct the way you're talking here in some ways, where you're saying things that aren't true. That's a big thing to learn to also to do, because you are saying things that are not true in the stream. And I can understand you thinking that way because of the way that the media has led people to think in those directions. But I think most of the reports that I've seen said that that well, I can't go through them right now. I don't have direct remembrance of what some of the media groups said about, except that some were castrated, okay, and some were not. Most were not. 7. Anyway, so I'm on with that. Work on what you can work on. Doesn't mean it's not all or nothing. I mean, because you're not going to necessarily. I mean, I'm not going to say what you're not going to do, because you can grow, but you've got to appeal to T and O if you want to grow in their knowledge, and you won't have any other. I mean, you can be looking at all kinds of stuff. There wasn't limits on that, except if you're in their classroom. But they're not here physically, so it's a different type of class now. But you're open to correct all your like I said, because every human has all kinds of things that they can work on. And if they single out one and think if they can't do that, then therefore there's no use in trying. That's a way that an influence, in my opinion, can come in and try to get you off the track. off that track. If that's what it accomplishes, then you're going to miss out on everything that can be benefited from by learning more and more about T&O's behaviors and ways and why and how and their thinking and there's so much to learn. So with that,
Good night. Just kidding. We love Hyper Baroque.
yeah, I don't.
Hyper Baroque's been around for so long. I don't
Yeah, Hyper Broke. We're not against you.
That was just weird. Anyway, we gotta go to bed.
Yeah. So good night, folks.